How could you keep this from me?
I was gonna tell you, I swear. Just don't walk away.
The envelope sliced through the air like a guillotine blade, landing on the kitchen counter with a thud that echoed louder than the summer storm raging outside. Elias stared at it, heart pounding as rain lashed the windows of his Brooklyn loft. The gold-embossed invitation mocking him from beneath the jagged tear. You're cordially invited to the wedding of Benjamin and Clara Hartwell, our family. Forever united, it read, but his name was scratched out in furious black ink, a betrayal sharper than any knife. Elias's fingers trembled as he traced the strike through, the ink still fresh enough to smudge under his touch. Born just 3 minutes apart, he, Ben, and Chris had shared everything: wombs, secrets, scraped knees from backyard brawls in their sleepy Ohio town. Triplets, identical down to the freckle on their left collarbones. They'd been the unbreakable trio, the town's golden boys who turned heads and broke molds. But that was before the world demanded they choose sides, before Elias's quiet rebellion tore the fabric of their bond. He crumpled the paper, chest heaving, and whispered to the empty room, "How do you bury your own blood?" The storm outside mirrored the one brewing inside him, thunder cracking like the snap of Ben's voice on that last phone call. It's a family event. Eli. Clara's family is traditional. They don't get it. And neither do we. Not yet. Ben, the eldest by a heartbeat, always the mediator, the lawyer with the silver tongue that could sway juries, but not his own heart. Elias had heard the hesitation. The plea masked his reason, but it landed like a slap. Chris, the baby of the bunch, the high school history teacher who quoted Lincoln in his sleep, had stayed silent on the line, his breath the only sound after Ben hung up. Silence from Chris was worse than words. It meant fracture, the kind that didn't heal with time or tequila. Elias paced the loft, floorboards creaking under his bare feet, the space a sanctuary of blueprints and half-finished models, remnants of his architect's life pieced together from freelance gigs that paid just enough to keep the lights on. At 28, he was the dreamer of the three, the one who'd fled Cleveland for New York after college, chasing spires and skylines that promised anonymity. Ben had stayed, building a life in their hometown with Clara, a pediatric nurse whose laugh could disarm a room. Chris had ventured to Chicago, marrying Lena, a fiery librarian who quoted poetry at dinner parties. Both brothers had rings on their fingers, vows exchanged in sun-dappled churches. While Elias had Mateo. God, Mateo. The thought of him steadied Elias's breath, a lifeline in the chaos. They'd met 2 years ago in the ER, Elias nursing a broken wrist from a scaffold collapse on a job site. Mateo, the paramedic who bandaged more than flesh that night. Hold still. Tough guy, Mateo had teased, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder, dark eyes crinkling with that easy smile that hid his own scars, deployments in Afghanistan, a family back in Miami who'd cut him off for loving men. From that fluorescent-lit gurney, they'd tumbled into something fierce and fragile, late-night tacos on fire escapes, whispered confessions under subway hums, bodies entwined in sheets that smelled of salt and sweat. Mateo was the anchor Elias never knew he needed, the man who saw the blueprints of his soul and helped him build. But love like theirs came at a cost. One Elias had paid in full last Christmas. The family gathering in Cleveland, The one where snow blanketed the old Victorian house their parents had left them after the cancer took Mom, and a heart attack claimed Dad 5 years back. Elias had planned to tell them then, to stand in the living room strung with lights and say, "This is Mateo. This is who I love." Ben and Chris knew fragments, whispers over beers about that guy from work, but not the whole truth. Not until Lena, tipsy on eggnog, cornered him in the kitchen. "Who's the shadow in your photos?" "Eli, the one with the hero jawline." Her words slurred with curiosity, but they ignited the fuse. Elias had cracked open, words spilling like the wine staining the counter. "His name's Mateo. He's everything." The room had frozen when Ben walked in, Clara trailing with a tray of cookies. Chris lingered in the doorway, Lena's hand on his arm. The air thickened, confessions hanging heavy as the scent of pine. Ben's face had drained of color, his lawyer's poise crumbling into something raw. "Jesus. Eli. Here? Now. Not anger. Not quite disappointment. Laced with fear for the family image they'd polished like heirloom silver." Chris had nodded slowly, murmuring, "We'll figure it out," but his eyes darted to the wives, to the unspoken ripple in the room. That night ended in shouts muffled by snow. Ben pacing the foyer, voice rising like a closing argument. "What about the family? What about us? You drop this bomb and expect us to just applaud." Clara had cried silently, her hand on Ben's back, while Lena tried to bridge the gap with hugs that felt like pity. Elias had stormed out into the blizzard, Mateo's call lighting up his phone like a beacon. "Come home," Mateo had said, and Elias had, fleeing to the airport in a cab that reeked of regret. Months blurred into avoidance, texts from Chris laced with emojis, but no visits. Ben's emails clipped and professional. Then the wedding invite arrived. Ben and Clara's big day in the fall. A black tie affair at the country club where their parents had danced at their own reception. Elias had clung to hope, scribbling RSVPs for two, dreaming of reconciliation under chandeliers. But the scratched-out name said otherwise. One brother's choice, Elias's truth, had cost him his place at the table. He sank onto the couch, head in hands, the storm's fury fading to a drizzle. Mateo's shift ended in an hour. Elias could picture him now, stethoscope slung over his shoulder, weaving through ambulance bays with that quiet grace. They'd talk tonight, over takeout from the Vietnamese spot on the corner, Mateo's thumb tracing circles on his knee. "Family's not blood. Mi amor," Mateo would say, his accent thickening with emotion. "It's the ones who stay." But Elias wanted both, the brothers who'd shared his first breath, the men who'd shaped his every step. A knock shattered the silence, sharp and insistent. Elias froze, pulse racing. Not the super, too urgent. He crossed the door, peering through the peephole at a figure drenched in rain, hood pulled low. The knock came again, softer now, and a voice filtered through, muffled but unmistakable. "Eli, it's me. Open up. Chris." Here, unannounced, 300 miles from Chicago, face gaunt under the porch light, eyes red-rimmed like he'd driven straight through the night. Elias yanked the door open, words tangling on his tongue. "What the hell?" Chris stepped inside without invitation, water pooling at his feet, shedding his coat like a skin. "I got your message. The one you didn't send." He pulled a crumpled envelope from his pocket, Elias's RSVP, forwarded by Ben. The +1 circled in red. Ben's losing it. Man. Claire's furious. Lena's mediating like it's the UN. But I couldn't let it end like this. Elias's throat tightened, the air between them thick with unsaid years. Chris looked smaller somehow. The teacher who commanded classrooms now adrift. His tweed jacket rumpled from the road. "Why now?" Elias whispered, voice breaking. "After months of nothing." "Because you're my brother," Chris said simply, pulling him into a hug that smelled of rain and regret. The kind of embrace they'd shared as kids after Dad's belt found their backs for some boyish sin. And Mateo's family, too. If Ben can't see that, screw the wedding. They stood there, locked in that moment, the storm outside a mere whisper now. For the first time in months, Elias breathed easy, the hook of loss loosening its grip. But dawn would bring decisions, and the road to Ben's heart was paved with more than good intentions. As Chris pulled back, clapping a hand on his shoulder, Elias wondered if triplets could mend what love had rent asunder, or if some fractures ran too deep, leaving scars that told stories of survival. The drive back to Cleveland the next morning felt like crossing state lines into enemy territory. Chris's old Subaru rattling over potholes while Elias gripped the armrest. Mateo's voice on speakerphone a steady hum from aloft. "Be safe. Amor. Call when you're there." His words wrapped around Elias like armor, but the knot in his gut twisted tighter with every mile marker. Billboards blurred past, happy families hawking minivans. Wedding expos promising forever, mockeries of the rift ahead. Chris filled the silence with small talk, the way he did in classrooms, easing into heavier topics like chapters in a textbook. "Lena sends her love. She's been reading up books on allyship, that kind of thing. Says we owe you an apology tour." He glanced over. Hazel eyes, mirrors of Elias's own, soft with guilt. "I froze that night. Eli. After Christmas. Thought if I stayed quiet, it'd blow over." "Stupid." Elias nodded, staring at the median strips whipping by. Ben didn't freeze. He built a wall. The words hung, accusatory yet aching. Ben, always the protector, the one who'd punched the neighborhood bully for calling them weirdos in 3rd grade. Now that shield turned inward, guarding a version of family that left no room for Elias's light. They pulled into the driveway of the old house by noon, the Victorians sagging under ivy like an elder statesman weary of secrets. Ben's sleek SUV sat curbside, Clara's hybrid beside it, a tableau of domestic normalcy. Elias's stomach churned as Chris killed the engine. "Ready as I'll ever be," but his legs felt leaden on the porch steps, the brass knocker gleaming like a judge's gavel. Ben answered on the second rap. "Ty ask you." Sleeves rolled up as if he'd been elbow deep in case files. His face, Elias's face. Give or take the perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, hardened for a split second before cracking into something weary. "Chris." "Eli." No warmth, but no venom either. "Progress." "Maybe." Inside, the living room hummed with tension. Clara perched on the sofa's edge. Her nurse's scrubs traded for yoga pants and a sweater that hugged her like comfort. Lena hovered by the fireplace, pouring coffee from a pot that steamed with unspoken words. The air smelled of hazelnut and hearth. A farce of festivity for the wedding prep scattered across the coffee table, floral swatches. Seating charts with Elias's name ghosted out. "Sit," Ben said, gesturing to the armchair that had been Dad's throne. Elias obeyed, perching like a defendant, Chris flanking him like counsel. Clara offered a tight smile, sliding a mug his way. "We didn't know you'd come." "Couldn't not," Elias replied, voice steadier than he felt. "This is our house. Our blood." Ben paced, hands in pockets. "The lawyers tell," for unease. "It's not about blood, Eli. It's about harmony. Clara's folks are flying in from Texas, old school, church every Sunday. If they catch wind of—" He trailed off, gesturing vaguely, as if Elias's love were a specter too shameful to name. Of Mateo, Elias's tone sharpened, the hook sinking deeper. "The man who saves lives? Who held me together when Mom's chemo bills buried us." Heat rose in his cheeks, months of swallowed fire erupting. "You scratch my name like I'm a stain." After everything, Clara winced, reaching for Ben's hand. "We panicked." "The optics." "Optics," Chris interjected, voice rising for the first time, the teacher's patience fraying. "This is Eli. Our triplet. The one who designed Mom's memorial garden, who drove through blizzards for Dad's checkups." "Screw optics," Lena nodded, stepping forward, her librarian's poise a quiet force. "Ben, honey, listen. I talked to Clara last week. About my cousin, out and proud, married to his high school sweetheart. Their family's stronger for it. Hiding? That breaks us." Ben stopped pacing, sinking onto the ottoman, elbows on knees. His eyes met Elias's, twins in turmoil. "I don't hate you, Eli, or him. It's just, we're losing Dad's legacy. The perfect sons, carrying on. What if this unravels it all?" The room stilled, vulnerability cracking Ben's facade like ice under spring thaw. Elias leaned forward, voice softening. "Legacy isn't suits and seating charts, Ben. It's us, messy, real. Mateo's part of that now. Invite us, or don't. But don't pretend we're not family." Tears welled in Clara's eyes, spilling over as she squeezed Ben's hand. "He's right. I want my nephew there, the one who makes you laugh like no one else. Nephew." The word hung, a bridge half-built. Ben exhaled, long and ragged, rubbing his jaw. "I need time. The ceremony's in 3 weeks. Let me talk to her parents." It wasn't yes, but it wasn't a strike through. A foothold. As they filed out hours later, air cleared but charged, Chris clapped Elias's back. One down, but Elias's phone buzzed, and Mateo, a photo of sunset over the East River. Captioned, "Waiting for your victory lap." Home called, but the fight lingered, a shadow promising more storms before the sun. 3 weeks blurred into a frenzy of half measures and hush calls. Ben's texts, evolving from curt to cautious, spoke to Clara's dad. He's processing. Elias threw himself into work, sketching elevations for a queer youth center in Queens. Lines flowing freer with Mateo's encouragement whispered over pillow talk. "You're building more than walls, Eli. You're building worlds." Mateo became the rhythm to his days, mornings tangled in sheets, evenings where paramedic stories bled into architect dreams, their laughter a balm against the ache. Yet doubt gnawed. What if Ben's processing calcified into refusal? What if the wedding day dawned without them? Elias watching from afar like a ghost at his own feast. The eve of the ceremony found them in Cleveland again, crashing at the house while Ben and Clara bunked at the club for tradition's sake. Chris and Lena had flown in, turning the Victorian into a makeshift war room of optimism. Lena baking pies, Chris cracking dad jokes over bourbon. But tension simmered. Ben's absence a void until midnight, when the front door creaked open. He stood there, tuxedo half-buttoned, hair disheveled, a bottle of scotch dangling from one hand. Couldn't sleep. His eyes found Elias's across the kitchen island, raw and searching. Clara's folks. They asked questions, said prayers. Even a bitter laugh escaped. Like it's a demon to exorcise. Elias's heart clenched, but he held steady, pouring 2 glasses. And you? What's your prayer? Ben accepted the drink, clinking it against Elias's with a ghost of their old ritual. That we don't lose you. Again, the words cracked, bourbon burning as he swallowed. I was scared, Eli, of change, of what it meant for us, the triplets, the unbreakable. But seeing you fight, it's humbling. They talked till dawn, words weaving through boyhood pranks to buried fears. Ben admitting the pressure of legacy, Elias confessing the loneliness of half-truths. By sunrise, tears streaked both faces, Ben pulling him into a bear hug. You're invited. Both of you. +1. Hell, bring the whole damn crew if you want. Relief flooded Elias. Hot and dizzying, but the morning brought Mateo, arriving by train with a duffel and that disarming grin. Told you, he murmured, kissing Elias's temple as Ben extended a hand. Awkward, but firm. Mateo. Thanks for sticking. The wedding unfolded under autumn leaves. The country club aglow with lanterns and laughter. Clara radiant in ivory lace. Elias stood beside Ben as best man. Mateo's hand warm in his under the altar cloth. Chris winking from the groom's side. Vows echoed, promises of forever amid floral arches. And when Ben kissed Clara, tears pricking his eyes, Elias felt the circle mend. But true mending came later, at the reception, under stars strung like confessions. Ben pulled Elias aside, voice thick. To new legacies, they toasted. Then Ben turned to Mateo. Welcome to the madness, brother. As the night waned, Elias and Mateo slipped away to the garden. Hands linked, the weight of invitation lifted. We did it, Elias breathed, Mateo's arms enveloping him. In that embrace, under Ohio skies, he saw the future, not fractured, but forged stronger, a testament to love's quiet revolution. Yet shadows lingered. Whispers of Ben's in-laws, sidelong glances. The road ahead bumpy with untested grace. Elias knew acceptance was a verb, not a noun, daily choices to choose each other over comfort. But with Mateo's heartbeat against his, the fight felt winnable. The bond of brothers reborn in truth's fire. Months later, at Christmas in the old house, the tree twinkled with ornaments from their shared childhood. Now joined by one Mateo had carved, a tiny skyline etched with hearts. Ben and Clara announced a pregnancy. Chris and Lena revealed adoption plans. And Elias sketched blueprints for a family expansion, a wing for the Victorian, rooms for the lives they'd build together. In the firelight, glasses raised, Ben's voice cut through the cheer. To us, the triplets, and the ones who make us whole. Eyes met across the glow. Scars faint, but stories etched deep. Elias squeezed Mateo's hand.
This truth changes everything between us.
One man's choice hadn't cost him. It had claimed him, weaving loss into legacy, isolation into unbreakable love.